So there are a couple more things that we need to do before installing Active Directory, and I've already gone ahead and done these, but I'm going to just walk through the process. The first is, if you notice in your own configuration, if you're following along, your computer name is just this really whacked out, Win name. And so what I did is I clicked on that, chose change, gave it the name that matches the name that I gave my virtual machine, MIIM DC01. By doing that, I chose OK. It restarts the computer, so be prepared for a restart there. The second thing is IP addressing. So let me go in and let me look at what's going on with the IP address. Now, this is not best practice here, folks, but remember, we're in a virtual environment that is connecting all these computers together. We can talk more about IP addressing later, but if you notice, it's going to obtain an IP address. Let's see if it's done that. So I'll come in here, I'll get to the command prompt, I'll do our IP config whack all, and we can see that it indeed has an IPv4 address, .100. So we'll want to keep that in mind. Don't worry about this DNS server address right here. We're going to fix that. So dashboard, add roles and features. We're going to choose next. Role-based, select a server. Well, here's our server. That's our IP address. We're going to choose next. And we're going to install Active Directory domain services. Now, in doing so, it's going to install the other tools and features that are subsequent to it. We'll choose next, next, next. We'll allow it to restart automatically once we're done if it needs, and we'll choose install. Now, I'm going to pause the video while it completes the install. It's installing the role, let's be clear, but we still need to configure it with our domain name and other items as well. So I'm going to pause. Now, as you can tell, if I wanted to continue to work on this server, I can go ahead and just close this. But what you'll notice is you'll get this notifications right here. And as you can see, feature install, so the install succeeded the feature. Now I need to promote this server to a domain controller. This is the process that I'm going to go through. Now, since this is the first domain controller in my domain, I'm going to go ahead and type the domain miim.local. So I'm going to make this the miim domain. I'll choose next. This process takes just a couple minutes. So at this point, it's chosen the default force functional level for me as Windows Server 2012 R2 because that's what I'm installing. I'm going to roll this back to 2008 R2 just from the aspect of I may want to put a 2008 server in there. So domain name system, if you didn't want to do that, go ahead and leave it as 2012 R2. At this point, I need to give a directory services restore mode password. My best practice is to use a very unique password here. So this is a password that I usually try to make unique to this one use, in which case I definitely want to put it in a password vault so I know how to get back to it. Now here it says, cannot find DNS, and that's because we're installing the first DNS server in the domain, so we'll say OK. It's going to find a nice NetBIOS name for me. In this case, my domain name is short, MIIM, so it's going to pop up with the MIIM as the NetBIOS name, as it did right there, and I'm going to choose next. At this point, if you remember, we created the best practice additional hard drive for all these files here. So I'm going to go ahead and change those to install under my S drive. Choose next. It'll go through. I'll review all my selections. Choose next. And it's going to just run some prerequisites. Now, don't worry if you get some, notifications here, some warnings. That's normal. Those warnings tend to relate to DNS. And since we're installing the first DNS, we're not going to have any DNS for it to find out on our network, etc. So I'll go ahead and pause while it does that. So as you can see at this point, here's the domain. It's complaining that I don't have a static IP. I should have a static IP. Again, we'll address that after we do all of the config, and we'll just do install. So now it's installing. It'll go in and install Active Directory, install the DNS, install all the roles, and it will restart automatically. So I'll pause while it does this. You can see at the bottom that it's adding the different features. It's added a DNS role. It's added ADDS as well. And now it's ready to sign me out and restart as an Active Directory domain controller. So it has restarted. I'm going to go ahead and do Control-Alt-Delete, and as you can see, I'm now logging in as the MIIM domain administrator. I'll log in, and now I'm going to go ahead and fix that issue with the IP address. So I'll go into the Network and Sharing Center real quick. That's one way to get there. Let me show you another way. If I open up Server Manager, from Server Manager, just simply go to Local Server. We'll wait a second for it to find its configuration. There's IPv4 via DHCP. I'll go to Properties. I'll go to IPv4 Properties. And if you notice, it needs an IP. Now, here's the loopback address, which works well because this is the DNS server. So I'm going to go 192.168.216.100. It'll give a subnet mask. I don't need a default gateway. I'll say OK. I'll say close. And it will change that by DHCP to show the static. So as you can see, there's my static address. We're done installing Active Directory. We're ready to install our first client into Active Directory, which we'll do in the next video.